Okay, just the last couple of slides, just want to go through the Basalt pilot here, since this is a uniquely sort of Northwest story. Maybe many of you have followed our progress along in the local papers. So this is under the Big Sky Carbon Sequestration Partnership. So this is one of 7 regional carbon partnerships that the Department of Energy formed. And so Big Sky is this region that encompasses so Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington, a little bit of North and South Dakota as well. Our project has to do with these flood basalt formations, and so on this map, this is a map of different geologic structures overlaid with CO2 sources. And what you see is that, so this structure right here, this is the Columbia Plateau province, so this is the flood basalt province, and this is the one that we're investigating. If you go to some other national maps where they haven't really incorporated the basalts, this is a blank. So all the Northwest is a blank, so there's no CO2 storage capacity. Same thing for the southeastern US. This structure right here is called the Central Atlantic Mafic Province. This is another basalt structure in an area where there's really little or no so-called conventional storage capacity. So this pilot project, we're expanding our geologic sequestration options here in really important, for us certainly, important parts of the US, here in the Pacific Northwest, and then here in the Southeast where there's a lot of stranded CO2 infrastructure lacking a storage option in something like in the basalts. Also internationally, if we look at India, the British Geological Survey did a report last year looking at conventional sedimentary rock storage, and what they concluded was that there's very limited capacity in India, and what's there is not very well co-located with their existing sort of coal and natural gas fleet. This red zone that you see here is called the Deccan Traps. So this is again a continental flood basalt that's present in India. It turns out that about 25% of India's coal fleet is located in or very nearby the Deccan Traps. So our work here has got implications for us, yes, but also international implications in terms of deploying a technology like this in an important future greenhouse gas emitting country, like India. Okay, so flood basalt, so the Columbia River Basalt Group, so this is a Miocene age flood basalt, so erupted maybe as many as 300 individual flows between about 6 and 17 million years ago. And these flows are all stacked up on top of each other, like you see here. So if you travel down through the Columbia Gorge, you can see that very clearly. And so as those flows were erupting, you've got gas which is evolving, as very evident from the Iceland volcano that you guys have seen in the news, but on a much, much bigger scale. So what happens is those flows are cooling at the surface, the gas bubbles get trapped and they form vesicles that you see here. So we've got that storage space which is set up in the basalts. So it's called a basalt flow top that you see here. So here's the section. And then the next overlying flow comes along. And so when that happens, that puts a lot of thermal and mechanical stress on the flow. And what you get is what geologists call these brecciated basalts. So this is this kind of broken up, rubbly zone where there's actually very high porosity and permeability. So a lot of our irrigated agriculture here in Washington State and the Pacific Northwest is coming from these basalt brecciated zones at shallow zones now, shallow basalts. For sequestration, we're always talking about going much deeper where the water is non-potable. So these things are all stacked up like this. So you got a flow top, permeable, and a flow interior section like this that has virtually no porosity or permeability. It's very, very small. So this is our caprock seals that are allowing the CO2 to stay in place and do those reaction processes that I was talking about.